I'm going to continue through Victory in the West series with Pattons' Third Army. This was actually the first of them published. This is the third one I got out of three that SPI put out, and then I've got the Salerno one. You'll notice I haven't set up all the pieces. Part of that's, there's a couple of reasons, but the US has a bunch of pieces that can be set up kind of freely. And not entirely freely, but they can be set up with or next to their core components. You have two core in the game and basically two columns of units, and I haven't gotten around to setting those up yet until I look through the exclusive rules once more, and that'll be this time with you. This one, I find the map a lot less displeasing, not those bright red bold colors coming out. These golds are much, much better. I'm not sure what convinced them to do the reds and yellows and all kind of ugliness. This just looks much, much more mellow. Another thing, you know, when you buy the boxed SPI games, the quality of the map is just a little bit better than the quality in the magazine games. It's barely discernible in some ways, but you get it through the pooch, definitely. Anyway, just something I found odd. It's not just, I think, me folding the magazine games too many times. Same basic game rules, standard rules that we used in the other one. Some specific movement restrictions on game turn 1. The 4th and 6th armor divisions cannot be moved. Now, I don't know what those are. That's 10th armor. Here we go, 4th and 6th, part of the 12th Corps. Okay. The Germans, on turn 1, the Germans may not move any 4 units of the 11th Panzer Division. They're probably... Jeez. See, I'm having trouble reading the unit designations and the startup hexes. I had to bring my old man glasses out. My eyes are so damaged right now. I've got progressive lenses, which should make this possible, but, you know, these are so tiny. There's the 11th Panzer. What is the other? Oh, 4 units. Okay, so that'll be this stack. There. All right. And they can move on game turn 2. Except as a result of combat, no German unit that's part of the Metz garrison, they'll have an M on them, and you'll see a lot of these are here, may ever leave the 3 hexes of Metz or the 9 entrenchment hexes surrounding the city. If such a unit leaves a Metz hex or an entrenchment hex due to combat, now it's free. So, whatever. During German movement of game turn 1, no German unit belonging to the 82nd Corps may move. However, if an 82nd Corps unit was attacked by the US, it can move without restriction. And I probably ought to see 82nd Corps appears to be garrisoning Metz. But it's also heading down here. Aha. Okay. So that side of the board. The US has a heavier concentration of forces here. It's probably a sign that you don't actually want to attack there. We'll see. Okay, new special big rule. The US player is subject to some restrictions according to the number of attacks they can make without penalty during the course of the game. Before the start of the play, the US player is assigned 75 support points, which they split between their 2 corps. This is part of the setup here at the start of the game. The US player performs these allocations openly by putting them on the track. Whichever corps has the more support points is going to be able to do them more throughout the game. Now, this support points concept has made it into the VCS Salerno, into the standard rules for the VCS. I'm not sure if it's exactly the same, but I think the designer really liked this idea and wanted to make it part of his standard basis. Upon resolution of each US attack, the US player loses a support point from the support marker from each corps. If an attack is a breakthrough, though, a U.S. breakthrough, no U.S. support points are lost. Oops. The U.S. player can gain support points to a corps by having one or more of its divisions at rest during a game turn. It's at rest if all of its units meet the following criteria. They have to have been in supply, they may not have moved in the last U.S. movement phase, and they may not have attacked or defended. Well, I can rest these guys right away, right? At the end of the U.S. player turn, it will be convenient for the U.S. player to note on a piece of scrap paper which of his divisions are eligible for rest. Then at the end of the German player turn, if they haven't been in combat or whatever, he can mark them. In order for a division to get requirements of rest, at least one unit must have conducted an attack during the game. Aww. In addition, no component units of the division may have been eliminated from play during the game. Okay, and this is per division. Okay. Each division that fulfills the requirements of rest makes its parent corps eligible to increase its support points. The U.S. player rolls a single die for each division that has rested. If all the component elements of the division are at least 10 hexes from the nearest German, the division parent's corps support marker is increased by the number shown on the die roll. If any element is within 9 hexes, the parent corps is increased by half the number shown on the die roll, rounded down, with a minimum of 1, though. The U.S. 83rd Division may not provide additional support points to the 20th Corps, regardless of whether or not it fulfills the requirements. Yeah, okay, whatever. Okay, if you get to 0 support, you get some penalties. All units are considered out of supply or isolated if they would normally be out of supply. No support bonuses can be awarded to any I assume they mean by any artillery units of that corps. No divisional integrity combat bonuses can be awarded to units. The U.S. player must continue to reduce his corps support markers due to each attack, and even if they've been reduced below 0, there's a negative side to the markers. All U.S. units, okay, and that's it for the support points. All U.S. units belonging to the 20th Corps are automatically out of supply during game turn 1. Okay, good. That's the guys I'm not supposed to use. In addition, no 20th Corps artillery can provide a support bonus during this game turn. All U.S. units belonging to the 83rd Division 20th Corps are automatically out of supply for the entire game. All right, where the hell is this thing? That's this far corner over here. Huh. That's interesting. Is that like a weakness? Regardless of normal supply considerations. I don't know. It's not really something the Germans can do about it. We've got improved positions, similar to what we had in Operation Grenade. The Germans aren't doubled. Instead, they defend with an increased combat strength of 2. Like entrenchments, they can only benefit the German player. Now, they have the other effects like entrenchments, so you don't have to attack out of them and everything. Operation Grenade had a special unit that could negate them. There is no such unit in this one that I know of. If there is, I have to find it and mark it. Weather and mud. At the beginning of every game turn, starting with game turn 2, the U.S. rolls a die and consults the weather table. This is, again, similar to what we had in Operation Grenade. If it's clear, you can use all your air points on the game turn. If it's light overcast, only half. Heavy overcast, it's full. It's none. Some weather results in rain. If there's rain, there will be mud, and I believe that'll be for the next 2 turns, or for the next turn as well. No, it's worse than that. Is the turn record track? Are they daily in this? They're daily turns still. Okay. I guess the rains tend to be heavier. What about the melting? The mud marker is put 3 spaces ahead of the turn in which the rain occurs. And mud will be in effect in just especially soft terrain. During mud game turns, streams are considered rivers. Mechanized units pay an increased cost which is indicated by the parenthesized values on here. And in combat, there's a shift 1 column to the left. On game turn 1, it's automatically heavy overcast with rain. So there will be mud up to game turn 4. And I'll keep track of weather on a little piece of paper like I did in the other one, because it is actually important, or is it not? Add 1 to the die roll of previous game turns. Weather was heavy overcast. Subtract 1 of it. Yeah. So I got to keep track of what the weather was on each turn. Okay. U.S. bridges. Same as in Operation Grenade. U.S. mechanized units can cross a river hex side, cost their entire movement, and I believe they can't do this if either side is a zone of control. Air points. Okay, so this one's a little more complicated than Grenade. During turns 1 through 7, the U.S. has 8 air points available. From game turn 8 to the end of the game, the U.S. has 6. During game turns 1 through 9, the Germans have none. On game turns 10 through 13, they have 1. And from 14 on, they have 2. During any clear or light overcast game turn prior to game turn 8, the U.S. player can make 2 heavy bomber attacks in 1 turn against a German units or stacks occupying a Metz hex or an entrenchment hex, but not an improved position. Both attacks must take place in the same game turn. The German target hexes may be in a U.S. zone of control. After the game turn in which they occur, they may not ever happen again. Heavy bomber attacks take place at the beginning of the U.S. player turn. The U.S. player points to 2 stacks and rolls a die. If it's clear weather, a 1 or a 2 is no effect. If it's light overcast, a 1 through 3 is no effect. If it's heavy overcast, you can't fly. Okay, if there's a success, the German chooses one of 2 options. He can eliminate a unit in the hex, or he can reduce a regiment to cadre status that has not already been reduced to this state, even if it doesn't have a strength chit. Okay. Variable German reinforcements on game turn 8, starting with. The German player must roll a single die at the end of his friendly movement phases in order to determine if he has 3 units of the 15th Panzer Grenadier Division available to him as reinforcements. They're over here. The rest of these are programmed reinforcements that I haven't put out yet. On a die roll of 1, these can enter during the current movement phase. On a die roll of 2 through 6, it's not available in the current turn. And he keeps doing this until he gets his 1 and gets to bring his units in. Okay, German 347 Volksgrenadier Division has only 2 regiments. Thus, it can get divisional integrity combat bonus when attacking, even though there's only 2 regiments. Now, I'm going to start having real problems because in Operation Grenade, I had all my divisions stacked, and there were so many U.S. units that they could really, I could do that more or less. Here, I've got divisions now. I had them in Grenade too, but I've got divisions spread out among multiple hexes, etc., sometimes quite far apart, and it's going to be hard for me to keep track of them unless I can cluster them. So I'm a little worried about that. Okay, but if I remember the 347 Volksgrenadier, it has a special special attack capability. Strength chits. Here's the special rule I grump about. There's a smaller number of strength chits than the combat units requiring them. It is possible there's no strength chits for the unit when it first performs a combat. That unit gets an imaginary strength chit. Now, this leads to all kinds of problems because, okay, if I'm so strength chits in the rules of the game are removed from the game when they're used. What I'm going to do is what I was saying I would do with Operation Grenade if I had not enough strength chits, which is I would recycle the entire pile of dead unit strength chits. Now, that could end up skewing the strengths a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that because I'm pulling the whole pile in at once at that point. These nominal chits, the reason they're a problem is I won't know if a unit's pulled a chit yet if it doesn't have one under it, right? Which may not be a terrible thing because if this is just empty, that's fine. But if something takes a one-level hit, I have absolutely no way to represent that, and I'd have to, make up some kind of notional system anyway. So I'm going to try to do what I was talking about from the other game. If I have to use notional chits, I'll pull some blanks and use them or whatever. I really don't know and don't think that I can just pull the strength chits from another game and mix them together. That would cause some issues. The biggest issue would be recovering the chits for the games, but there also might be differences in how the strength chits are balanced per game, and I wouldn't want to mess with that if that's the case, although I doubt that that's the case. I think I think they're probably pre-selected sets. The other side of it that bothers me is that the distribution of chits might change. So it's possible that if there's more chits in one game than another, the distribution's a little different anyway. But the biggest thing is that I'd have like more chits, so I could pick all the ultra strong chits or something like that. It could change the balance somehow. I'm not sure what I'm doing isn't equally unbalancing, but we'll see. It's also quite possible that there are almost enough chits to cover everything in the game. And screw it, man, you're not going to bring all your units in, right? And I'm almost certain that there are going to be units that lose their chits and end up in cadre state. Yeah, it's just the nature of the game, man. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. All right, there are multiple scenarios. There's the battle for Metz, which the victory conditions for that are at the end of the game, a hypothetical German unit in hex 1017 must not be considered in supply. Well, where the fuck's 1017? Okay, that's Metz itself. In addition, the U.S. player must occupy or have been the last to pass through 4 of the following 5 hexes. Morgenhenge, 2022. That's way back there. Jesus. There. Chateau Salines, 1527. Up there. Falkmont, 1819. There's no stars or anything on these suckers. They may be these darkened ones. There's Falkmont. Yeah, that seems to be the case. Dews, 2125. There. And Königsmacher. Some of these others look dark too. 1209. That's over here. Yeah, I don't think the bold type is actually the impact there. Nancy, yeah, what the hell. Okay. So I'd have to go through 4 of the following 5 and capture them, and I have to have Metz cut off from supply, whether or not there's a German unit in there. And that would be a marginal victory. A substantial victory is the same, but I have to occupy or be the last to pass through a set of hexes 0917, 0918, and 1017. I have to have been the last to go through all of Metz. Okay. In addition, no more than 3 of the 9 entrenchment hexes surrounding Metz may be occupied by the Germans. And a decisive is the same, but I must occupy or have been the last to pass through 8 of the 10 towns. And now we add Saarburg, Sarreguemes, Saarlouis, Saarunion, and Saarburg. Which, some of them are up here, I know. There's Saarbrücken. I don't know if that was in there. I like Saarbrücken. Okay. I don't see that in there. Okay, whatever. How am I supposed to tell those? Fucked if I know. I'll probably put some kind of tiddlywinks or something on them. Okay. German marginal victory is if they can trace supply into Metz, whether they have a unit. Substantial is the U.S. was the last to pass through less than 5 of the 10 towns listed in the decisive victory. And their decisive is the U.S. occupies or was the last to pass through less than 3 of those 10 towns. If none of these fit, it's a draw, and I don't know what that means. The U.S. gets 1 level of victory in their favor if at the end of the game 3 non-cadre regiment or brigade-sized U.S. units are east of the Saar River. Well, that looks like an easy goal. It's back here. Something I can, try to do without thinking too hard. But north of all hexes ending with the number of 16. Oh, God. East of the Saar, but north of all hexes ending with the number 16. Okay. That's kind of like a line here. Which way is north? That way. Okay. Made that hard again. Shift the victory 1 level in the Germans' favor. At the end of the game, any 3 German combat units are west of the Moselle, but not occupying Metz, and I assume this is the Moselle. It looks like it is. Just making sure it's not like the Meuse or something. Here it comes too. Okay. All right, great. But that's the game that ends on turn 12. The game that ends on turn 24, which we'll of course try to do, has the same victory conditions, except the Germans get them shifted twice in their favor. So what I'm kind of going to do is I'm going to play at the 12 turns and come back, kind of score a victory based on that. I feel like the victory conditions to this are too picayune for my taste. I like Dean Essig's style of victory conditions better, I should be taking Metz and what else? I don't know. But I'll try to deal with these as best as I can. And the U.S. gets a decisive, except they have to occupy or pass through 3 of the following 4: Trier, Merzig, and Saarbrücken. Because you can't reach the substantial and decisive, so they make it harder. And the decisive is same as the U.S. substantial above, not the substantial here, except the U.S. must occupy or have been the last to pass through Neunkirchen and Nofelden. Damned if I know where they are. There's Nofelden. There's Neunkirchen. My guess is you have to pretty much sweep the map, but we'll see. Anyway, I have some setup to do, and I need to take a break before I start. Okay, so blind as I am, I meant in terms of the game, but otherwise as well. I did my setup. I chose 48 points. I'm going to drop that to 47.28. 48 points for the 12th Corps, which is this side over here. I feel like the preponderance of what I need to get to is over there, at least to get sort of the minimal victory points. As time goes on, I'll be able to use the 20th Corps more, I guess, but it's knocked out in the first turn entirely by being out of supply, and it pretty much can't, do as much. These guys are always out of supply, which means I'm not going to do much with them ever. So it seems to me the focus is driving this way. Got all the reinforcements set up. These are the variables. And then I set up the U.S. forces, and I did something a little goofy. But I set all my artillery up in the front. Why? Well, because I outran my artillery, and I want to keep it close. I suspect I'm going to be piling up infantry divisions and having them kind of operate together. But this is more of a spread out game than Grenade was. So we may find that that doesn't, you know, that maybe I can't consolidate quite as much. I have more room to get a couple of stacks on one hex. But honestly, the German defense line looks pretty solid, at least right now. There aren't gaps in it. There aren't places where I can, you know, say, oh, I can slip a division in here without bringing another unit in that now, you know, I'm going to have to attack with a single division. Look at the... Okay, so we have a difference between rivers and streams. Can I tell that difference? I was able to tell it in the other game. So this is definitely stream up to the Saar. I think this is all river. I think this is all river. This is stream here. Okay, I think I can tell the difference. For the most part, these are rivers, which means they're going to be painful. They double the enemy, triple it if he's behind fortifications, and I guess we're about ready to start, that means. This is a long enough game, it's going to take more than one video, you know, so I can take kind of some of my time on it. And I think the US always goes first unless there's something special. So here we go. These forces are not as potent as the U.S. forces that opened up Operation Grenade either. I'm not seeing a lot of A3s in here. There's mainly A2s, there's even A1s. So what I'm doing is, here I'm taking a 2-hex attack on this. I've got a fair amount of artillery. I'm not making a lot of attacks, just 3 of them. That means I'm only going to be burning 3 support units. From here on, we hit 20th Corps. So we don't want to play with that, and I'm just trying to focus on punching through somewhere so that I can start rolling the flank. You know? I don't know how much that helps because these defensive positions are defensive positions anyhow, but it's always a good move, right? I'm not going to be able to use 8 air points. I think there's, unless I'm totally mistaken about the game, air points are only 1 per, right? Maximum 1 can be allocated by each player. So the big 8 air points for that first turn, that's just not going to do me much good. I'm trying to think if I screwed up because of the mud, but I don't think so. Unless the movement point costs are significantly different. Yeah, clear is fine in mud for non-max. Woods is more painful than I remember in the last one. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I also may have screwed up. All right, I'm going to resolve the combats. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. If you want to see me messing things up and showing the system off more, Operation Grenade, the first video for that, I go into a lot of detail on that. I just want to get into the play and see how this thing kind of moves along. Spent 3 of my support points with all of the effort that I put in, trying to consolidate my attacks, etc. I didn't get a whole lot out of it. I didn't get hurt, but not a lot of gain. I pushed forward in a couple of hexes, but I got shoved back over here. Not the artillery that I'm flipping over this unit. Got knocked back. And that's not very promising. This is going to be tough. This is going to be tough for the U.S., I can tell. You know, I could have made broader attacks, used more of my air points or whatever, but as it was, I was struggling to get decent odds. I had 1 attack that was on good odds, and I didn't roll terribly well. And then the others were not that good. This one was actually really bad, where I got pushed back. I was running around here on the 2-to-1 table, I think, right? No, it couldn't have been. Must have been over here on the 3-to-1 where I got that A1. So, yep, that's it. Now, on the bright side, I have a whole bunch of air power, and I have a bunch of artillery and everything. So the Germans, again, aren't really in a position where they can throw their weight around much. See if I can figure out what the hell I can do with them. And I gotta pay attention to their movement restrictions. I got these guys I know can't move, but I don't know if there's anything else. It's overcast. Crap. Do I have those air points? This would be bad if I don't. I forgot about the weather situation. Heavy overcast. Shit. I should not have gotten the air points. I'm going to leave things as they are. Give the US a little bit of a benefit out of that. But yeah, not only did I not get 8 air points, I didn't get even the 4 that I thought I was going to get. So we may have actually gotten a better than expected attacks by the US there. It kind of evens out. I forgot the hilltop bonus here, which should be a good thing, but it would have actually caused a German retreat. Just because the chart's kind of weird. You wouldn't want to decrease your combat odds unless you knew what the die roll was going to be, but I don't feel like there's a whole hell of a lot for the Germans to do. This unit is my problem. I've got to move him out of the way, but other than that, this guy's protected by his entrenchment, improved position, whatever. I shifted some artillery forward. I moved a Metz unit around from the back because I'm not really worried about that. But this guy's a real problem. I've only got one zone of control. Now I could cover everything by going into here and here. But that weakens my defenses compared to what I had. If I go like this, the US can slip behind me. I don't know which to do. I really don't. I think I don't want to let myself get outflanked, so I'm going to drop into this position. But I'm really not thrilled with what I'm getting here. I'm also having trouble with like divisional integrity. 361.89. That's part of this unit and this unit. I would love to be able to be next to them, but I don't have the defensive works there. So this guy's not going to get his shift. He didn't get it when he was attacked before. He's not going to get it now. As things consolidate more, I might be able to clump things together, but I think it's really hard to get the divisional integrity on defense in this. And it may be hard to get it on attack, too, just because this may just end up so much more spread out than Grenade did. It certainly becomes more of a headache. Stacks of units operating together, or pairs of units operating together, that's pretty easy to cope with. But here they're not set up so that they're like all adjacent or anything like that. So it's really kind of tricky to get your units in the right positioning. And for the most part, I'm not trying to even worry here. I mean, I've got units like this thing, which is part of the 13th Corps. It is in the right place. But everything else appears to be 82nd. I don't know why that's here. I don't know if it's got a match anywhere. But it's part of the Metz garrison. There's not much I can do about it. I might be able to find other divisional elements somewhere. I guess I can look through here to see if I've got it somewhere, but it just seems to be a lost unit, you know, and I'm not going to worry about trying to get it together with its division. I don't have to make any attacks, so I'm done with the first turn, and I'm done for tonight. I'm not sure how much I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a painful slog. Again, desperately trying to find a place where I can launch an attack that might actually gain me some ground. up here is the most promising, there's no question. But now I've got 12th Corps in play. I'm sorry, 20th Corps in play. So I'm trying to poke holes here, over here at chits. Over on the flank here, just trying to find some place I can hit. These guys are out of supply permanently, so they're not gonna, I don't think, be a terribly valuable resource. As long as the Germans have their initial starting forces there, I'm not gonna pick at them. I don't want to burn support points on them, although actually launching an attack with these guys might be of value. Oh no, they're not allowed to rest. Yeah, so. And I'm even bringing some of the armored units up to try to, you know, just put some additional pressure on. Reading the player's notes for this game, the U.S., and it's pretty obvious from the situation, the U.S. is at their strongest right now. The weather sucks, but this is when they're at their best. This is when they're launching their attack, and there's nothing but German reinforcements coming, and the U.S. is not going to get stronger. And they also are at their strongest on support points, but of course, I could delay the attack, you know, or make some little probing attacks and then rest for a while and grow that. But at this point, I won't remember which units can rest and which can't, so trying to get support points that way doesn't make a lot of sense because few units have attacked. So I'm just going to see if I can cut some holes, but it does not look promising to me. German position looks too tough. If I were Patton, I'd just go home, you know. Working down the line, a little bit more pushing over here, but the U.S. got pushed back all along this line, including a very good attack against this unit. I was on like the 5-to-1 table. But the vagaries of the CRT, I got allowed me to actually push through here. Basically, if the Germans hadn't expended an artillery piece, they would have been able to hold the space. They would have taken just a D1 result. They could have either fallen back or taken, but instead they took a D1-1, which is they retreat a space and they must take a casualty, which is kind of a painful option. And then over here, we also managed to break against a single kind of small unit. And once we start oozing into these across the river, we're weakening that defensive line. We're making it more like it is up here. So that's kind of nice. Support points, you know, I mean, they're dropping. That's life, right? And I guess it's time to try to figure out what's up with the Germans. And of course, as with any system in which mandatory attacks for being adjacent are included in the game, the defensive moves aren't necessarily trivial. You know, so like I couldn't just hold my line here. I had to fall back a little bit. This isn't too bad, but I got a little bit of a gap here. Shifted some forces, weakened my line over here. That may open up new opportunities for the U.S. to try to smash through at other places that are maybe even more valuable. In part, you know, I may not have wanted to structure this quite how I have it, but the divisional integrity rules, the hilltop rules, stuff like that, they make me want to have units in certain places. Now I'm going to want to get an artillery up on this hilltop, but until that can happen, you know, so that I have this extra unit to put in the line that's actually a reasonable unit. The other weakness is actually where I retreated here was a bad idea. I should have retreated here. Then I could be here. I don't make these kind of decisions well. I'll let it sit. Do I want to hold this space? Is that where the key? I could just open this all up. But I do that, and then I open up a front here that I don't really want to open up. So I'm going to leave this guy here, but he's in real danger. But anyway, I brought those panzers down. They couldn't get around over here where I really need them. So I put them in the Metz line, and I'm going to try to defend here. It's not like the U.S., I don't think, can just plow straight through, although that would be a very Patton thing to do, I guess. But under me, they probably can't. So yeah, it's really a tough call. What I may do, I hate to give either of these up. because an anti-tank unit is really useful in this scenario. I'm finding I really need that extra shift from, you know, the armored units, and this cancels that out. Then again, I may have been giving it illegally. Yeah. I am guessing I took some combined arms bonuses I shouldn't have. Breaking through here. That certainly wouldn't have happened in that case. Crappies. Yeah. So the U.S. may have gotten some advantages from that that I didn't really want to allow them. I think what I could do, I hate to give up the river line, especially with the mud. This is kind of nice. I think what I could do is pull back like this, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, can't get there. 1, 2, 3, 4, can get there that way. Pull back into this kind of position. This gives this a couple extra strength points. Makes it a little harder to break through. Yes, I opened things up so that the U.S. has a lot more capability to move around and function, but overall, I think that's probably the best reaction I can get given some of the problems that I'm facing right now with the defense. So I mean, you know, this isn't a game in which, and that may be a good thing, but it's harder for me to grasp, in which you're trying to knock out enemy units, you know, a la the old Avalon Hill classics. More like the Defender retreat results that the SPI games of the era granted. It does force you to fall back. And it does continually force you to re-establish your line, etc. And the problem, of course, is for the turn 12 scenario, I gotta kind of keep Mets connected and in supply. That's the German goal. It's not the only German goal. I'm worried about the whole campaign, well, the longer scenario, more than I am about the short scenario. But I look at the short scenario as a way of assessing how well I'm doing, you know, and I might make judgments based on how far I'm going to go. So the breakthrough is here with a little bit of cheating by the U.S., I guess. You know, keeping all the different shifts applied correctly, I really find that difficult. And I find it more difficult with this game than I do with Desert Fox. I think they're actually more complex in this game. You know, like the determinations of, oh, well, if they're in a defensive position, because there's so many defensive positions. You know, when you look at the few fortification positions that there are, at least that are permanent on the map in Desert Fox, there's kind of a, oh, what does that do? But here they're all over, and you kind of think, I know what that does. And you're not, at least for me, I'm just not really used to applying the combined arms bonus that much, because in Operation Grenade, it didn't come up very often. There weren't that many units that granted it. Neither the mechanized that just give it to themselves for free, nor tanks that I could get into play and get the divisional attack bonus. So it's like, you know, well, which one do I want? I don't know. I probably want the extra strength point with the tank, but I'm not really, if I'm using that, I'm not really fudging by that much. But here I definitely made attacks where I'm not sure, like this attack, I'm not sure that attack was particularly valuable if I didn't have that armored advantage. I'm not, you know, the extra couple strength points weren't what did it. Of course, maybe I missed some other shift. Remember, there was a shift in against the U.S. that made it possible to get this breakthrough at all. So we'll just leave that to the the luck of the battle and hope that I make approximately an equal number of such errors for both sides. And we'll move to November 10th. 10th of November, another big 6 on the weather. So still raining, mud moves forward another turn. My impression right now is that I think I'll be able to use that space the U.S. opened, that the Germans opened up by withdrawing a little bit, to actually take advantage of some things. Now, it may not be as bad as if they had stayed closer. You know, I mean, this could have all been open. Now I can pick on units, but I'm being directed towards those weaker units if I go after that. You know, as opposed to being able to pinch into, pinch. I think I may have just coined a verb, I'm not sure. Into and around the Metz area, which obviously is where I want to go, but you don't meet strength with strength, you meet weakness with strength, right? So let me go over what the U.S. is going to do. I'm launching an attack over here, which may not be too bad. Another one over here. One of the, oh no, these guys are all on this. This one's on this, and I'm not too certain that that's going to work well at all. I think the odds aren't very good on me there. I'm sort of outrunning my artillery back here. I can get it in there, but I don't have a lot of firepower up front. I got no air power. Over here, I've concentrated a great deal of artillery, mainly 12th Corps stuff against this hex, but I've got 20th Corps moving against this hex. See if I can break through there. Otherwise, I'd have to shift my 12th Corps, or my 20th Corps, over to join the rest of that. It's not optimal to have my corps divided this way, but it's what I did. And over here, no attacks, except up here. I launched one. This was actually an attempt, I can't remember what the hell I did. It was an attempt to try to push through and get more force on this here. And because I wasn't able to get a lot of forces into play against that easily, like I could have attacked from 3 different hexes if this was an open zone, if there wasn't a zone of control into here, I would have been able to bust my way through, I think, into an important hex for victory. Over here, I'm using whatever the hell this lead division is that's been working pretty hard, the 2612. I'm using that to try to recuperate a support point, mainly because I couldn't get my forces into position there where I wanted them, not without bringing this unit into play. I gotta worry a little bit. There's some German reinforcements, but you know, honestly, I don't know when and where they're coming in. I would rather play that way. It's obviously not the most competitive way to play in a competitive game. Like, you know, the old Napoleon at Waterloo. You know, Blucher's coming in here then, so you kind of plan your whole game around that. I don't want to do that. I like to be surprised. I like to not have too much intelligence. I'm pretty good at not having much intelligence, but I mean in terms of knowledge of what's going on. And so this is going to be a slower turn than maybe I'd hoped for, but I want to use my force where it's effective. What I've learned so far with this system is if I'm going with a crapshoot of one of us pushes the other, or maybe I take injuries or something, I don't want to fight that battle if I can help it. So artillery is really important in this, which is a reason to mass it. Started off great. I started handling these attacks. This guy actually got a success. This guy got a massive breakthrough. Wow, looks great. Americans are kicking butt. And then over here we got repulsed. Okay, kind of didn't feel too unlikely with that, but all of this got repulsed too. And you know, obviously the Germans aren't going to advance. There's not a whole hell of a lot of reason to advance on your own when you're defending. You might want to, if you've got a position to cut off somebody's retreat route or something like that. But in general, I can probably move to those units if I really want to counterattack. So maybe I have a counterattack here or something like that. But that takes me out of my defensive position. I actually thought I screwed something up. I again forgot these two artillery. And they threw in and defended on this. I'm not sure I would have applied them that way. But yeah, I mean, I'm making my attacks and I just completely forgot these guys were there. And they're kind of a game changer. And they're able to affect either of those. So that puts us onto the German side. And I don't expect the Germans are going to do much. A little bit of juggling. Might try to connect this up a little better. Over here, I got to do something about that. I don't know what. I might be able to tighten up the line by falling back from the river, but I'm not really sure that that's the case. Obviously, I got to get out of here. But beyond that, there's this gaping hole that I've got to try to cover. The other direction from the Germans, this is where my weakness is. And I have got an opening right here. Now, first of all, I let this guy rest. So 12th Corps gets another point. I kind of bumped these, and I'm not positive that I have the 20th where it belongs, but it's probably within a point or two. Oops. And there's a gap here, but I'm not really convinced that the U.S. is likely to go charging up that way. They're probably going to try to exploit it and keep rolling the flank. But again, I got to keep Metz controlled. So, like, you know, I can kind of open up over there as long as I keep a line to one of my map edges in terms of the roads. Over here, we'll talk about this in a moment. This has gotten a little weaker, but I moved this unit from on top of the hill. The artillery is now on top of the hill, and I moved one of the 217th SS Division units out of there. And you can see it's up here. This is because I'm having a lot of trouble covering this huge gap. So trying to pull out of here, one of the things I did was pulled one of the units upward, and I'm just trying to withdraw backward. These guys probably want to get out of there, but the problem is there's a U.S. unit right here that's preventing me from withdrawing quite as well as I want to. I don't want to give up the ground yet, but I'm going to have to at some point soon. And, you know, Trier, which is kind of one of the, I think they're one of the, they're one of the campaign goals, basically, the long scenario goals. I just can't hold, I can't hold the line across here. Now, I'm not going to be able to hold a big pocket either, but we'll see what happens. Hey, it's the Maginot. That should work. It's what's left of it. And that's one reason I at least temporarily moved that SS regiment up here. Is that gives me a more flexible response, and I can always drive him back down the road towards Metz if I need it. Now that does open this up a little bit. He had to shift over. That might mean a breakthrough right here in the center again, and that would be bad news. But, you know, bad news is pretty much what the Germans are facing, you know, at this stage in the war anyway. So maybe I'm making mistakes, maybe not. The thing I'd love to do is give up the Metz garrison, you know, pull that out. That's a lot of pieces, but I'm not allowed to. Hitler or somebody has told me, no, you cannot give up Metz. So this I may end up paying for. Right now, it's not an absolute necessity. There's no U.S. units that are going to come crossing the river there. But this gives me, if they do push in this direction, tactical capabilities in here. I can always strip another one off and send it there if need be. But unfortunately, and I do allow the Germans to know where the next reinforcements are going to come from. And those, now I wonder if I cheated. It's very likely. Yeah, I think I did. I think I moved him from here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6.5, 10.5. No, that's legitimate. And I couldn't get much closer. I could have gotten to here. So actually, I think I actually must have somehow had the right numbers in mind. And only moved 2 hexes at a time when I was counting, which God knows how I managed to do that. It was completely subconscious. But yeah, I can always drive this back. to try to repair things if they get too far out of control. But this is a situation. What I was talking about was I do know where the German reinforcements are for the German player. So he knows that they're coming in at Trier, and I will have more forces coming this way. I just want to make sure that if that breakthrough gets much worse, that I can extricate things and get into a good position along the west wall there. Okay, so the weather here on the 11th is clear. It's still mud, but that opens up our opportunity. It isn't between now and game turn 8 over here. We can do the heavy bomber attacks, and clear weather is the best time to do it. Unfortunately for us, I look and there's a lighter unit on top of each stack, and basically I can't go pawing through the opponent's stacks, but I could try to bust up a couple of spaces. And I have the capability to at least destroy the lighter unit, which is appealing. Or, if the German wants to, he can remove the next unit under. Now, it has to be Metz or the surrounding hexes. And I think I'm going to do it. I'm not terribly worried about the anti-tank gun. That's not particularly a special unit, so I think I'm going to aim for 3-point units. I see this as a 3-unit hex, so maybe I don't want to hit that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit these 2 flank units and just see what happens. Now on a 1 or a 2 they fail. We'll do the first one over here. Okay, so I got something, and the German has the choice of either... Okay, so here's the thing. I can lose 3 points, or I can drop a B1. Let's look at what the average for a B1 would be, since we have this. Morale level B is about a 4. So, on average, that's about equal. Is either cadreing that infantry unit or getting this. Now, the advantage of the infantry unit is it may be associated with something else. But that seems to be, that's the lost lamb. So, I don't know which way to go, you know. 4 is the average. That means upper or lower could happen. I'll cadre that just because, in part because of the small number, the fact that there might not be enough strength counters more than anything else. Because to me it's a 50-50. And I was hitting the SS because we hate the SS. And we hit that too. Let's see what the Germans are going to pick. They're in the same position. Here, though, I'd be cadreing 2582. Huh. Wow. So wait, this unit may be misprinted. This may have been a 2282. Huh. All the more reason to hit it. That unit's misprinted, I believe. I'm a little worried about loss of units, so I'm going to let this one get damaged too, because I may need to garrison Metz with these units and just completely have it surrounded, which means I'm going to have to spread out my units, so therefore I'll need more units and not necessarily a bigger unit. So if that's a 4-strength unit and this is a 3-strength unit, losing an entire unit is worse than losing a 1-point unit, is my view there. So those are my losses, and now we're off, and we're going to see what we can do with the big bad U.S. forces, but still in the mud. It would be awesome to use all these air points. I don't think that there's really an easy capability for that. I'm actually launching a fair amount of attacks. I'm thinking about doing this one. No, because he had to move up to get to this river space. Yeah, so I'm actually set up for a potential attack on this, trying to force the Germans to withdraw. If they don't, I can launch an out-of-supply attack there and throw air points in if they're available. But this turn, I'm not set up for it. I've actually opened up some gaps here. Over here is getting wider and wider. The Metz garrison can't come out, though. And if I can destroy these guys, unfortunately, I'm not going to get an armored bonus there, because there's armor in defense, and continue widening things over here, I think I'm going to be forcing the Germans to fall back in a number of places. And they may have to give up that whole Metz salient and try, maybe some sort of defensive line further back and just say, screw it. Which I think gives the U.S. a very good position for the turn 12 victory conditions. Over here, we're concentrating our forces for a couple of attacks. And again, resting. That's one thing you can do in this game, which I kind of don't like. One division can just rest for everybody. Now, obviously, I'm spending more attacks. And here I've actually got an attack with both 12th and 20th Corps units. That's not a great idea. The reason it's not a great idea is I'm going to be spending a support point off each as far as I can tell. Any attack that Corps is involved in costs you, and I'm doing that all on one hex. However, it looks like a good opportunity where I can get 3 hexes in against one little corner piece and maybe break their line. So yeah, of course, I used about half my air points. The Germans are probably not going to attack, but they may have to, actually. This unit's got a, well, he doesn't have to attack, but he's got a hard time getting out of there. That's all I can say. I do not see a way for him to leave, which may mean I have to abandon him. So I've got half my air points, which means if it's light overcast, I get about as many air points as I'm using anyway, which is pretty cool. Okay, so what managed to happen? Well, over here we got an actual breakthrough, which gave me a point back. That, the point that we spent didn't get spent, basically. Over here, our attack, of course, succeeded, but it was an expensive attack in terms of support, and it didn't gain us that much. We didn't get as good a result as maybe we would have hoped. Over here, we got repulsed here. We got repulsed back here badly. That broke that division's integrity, because you got to take all the hits on the unit that's doing the attacking, I think. But over here, that was trivially successful, and that's putting enough of a threat with the with this out of supply 83rd or whatever in a position to threaten the Germans. They have to back away. So that's what we'll be seeing, but we got more German reinforcements coming too. Okay, and the Germans have to pull back, right? Can't get this guy out of anywhere, but you can see him trying to form the line. Still trying to keep that hook to Metz on this northern or southern flank as best as I can, and hold the hill, use forests, use the entrenchments that I have or whatever they are. Improved positions. Over here things are a lot uglier though. I've had to kind of abandon Metz. Now I could have held this space, but the thing is, and that would maybe get me a turn more before the US can start cutting around behind. That may be the wiser move. Let's keep him here. The difficulty with that is if the US manages to get behind me here, I'm in trouble. But yeah, if they're going this direction, they're not going this direction is kind of how I'm looking at it. Those SS troops have shifted even further over, split further from their buddies. But I needed something here. They were the only thing they could reach. And reinforcements made it to here, which may be illegal. I couldn't make it that close to the enemy line. So let's keep them there. And that leaves a little bit of a potential gap there, but it's not real. There's zones going through here, so we're in okay shape there, I guess. And I'm trying to fall back where I can, which allows this 83rd Division or whatever to start pushing forward and keeping pressure on. It's not a potent force, but it's something, and it is providing some pressure. So what's that? That's the end of November 11th. And I'm feeling a little ill. Nausea from probably my eyes, but who knows? So I don't know if I'll be back. Hey, the thing is, this one's going up. But I also ate a lot of meat tonight. I don't usually eat this much. I had a couple of huge London broils that I made, and I had about half of one of them. My wife won't eat my meat. There are things one could say about that, but mainly, like these are not great chunks of meat. But I kind of like a lot of texture to my meat, and it's got a decent amount of fat on it and everything. And I just have I've learned this magic way of pan frying them that I really like. You wouldn't think that would work with something as tough as a London broil, but it actually does if you use oil and salt and everything on it. And it works out pretty well. But part of it is I'm just not used to eating this heavily. And so I'm feeling a little faint. I really should have not frozen both of them at once. Because one of these will probably last, it's going to last me, a couple of days easily. And I probably shouldn't have eaten as much as I did. It probably should last me 3 days. Anyway, right now, what are we seeing? Well, I'm feeling a lot more sanguine about the U.S. position than I was earlier. Of course, I've probably made some cheating maneuvers on them. That would not surprise me at all. I've caught myself doing so several times. And, when I catch it. I think because they're on the offensive, they're more likely to have me cheat in their favor. It's not really that I'm pro-offensive. I certainly am not. It's just I have a harder time. You're thinking more on the side of the offensive. How can I get that force in there? How many artillery do I have there and everything? And my experience with a grenade is like, oh, there's no German artillery anymore after the early part of the game. There's still a bunch of German artillery kicking around. The problem with the artillery is it's hard to retreat. So it ends up getting very true to form. It ends up getting caught, and most of it gets wiped out on the assault. You can see Metz. I've created a ring around it. It's a weaker position now, and that leaves the U.S. with a lot of different options. Pursuing this way doesn't look like it's terribly valuable. Trying to punch deeper? Maybe. Trying to surround Metz? Maybe. Trying to pick its way into Metz? Again, maybe. It's hard to tell which one is the most advantageous for the 20th Corps stuff. Over here, where 12th Corps is, a little bit of 20th, which I should not have done. Definitely, we want to clear this out of there, make sure it doesn't get away safely. But we also want to figure out where we want to break the line. And this doesn't look all that terribly strong. It doesn't have defensive positioning. Yeah, I took woods. That helps a little bit. But, if I have a choice not to retreat, I might choose to take that and force the Germans to fall back from the position or else launch an attack of their own. And then, obviously, there's this weak spot. I've just been leaving that there. The mud has made it so I can't launch the attack I want to against it. But if the line starts falling back that way, this guy's just got to go. He's not going to be able to hold on there either. So, you know, we'll see which places we can pick off. We see some obvious choices, though. This looks like it's going to be attacked, you know, without the river line. Blow that out of there. However, it may be more important to try to push on harder. Try to crack the line here, and force. You know, I hit here. The Germans can fall back to the ridge, and well, that's not really that much that I've done to them. But I hit here. There's not much behind that, and now I've really kind of started threatening these positions. So there's a decent amount of maneuver, and you know, those kind of options available. We'll see how clever I am when I actually play the U.S. as opposed to when I'm looking at it just after having set up the German side and beginning to see the defects in the line. All right, up it goes.